Hello again, Alleyway Conversation listeners. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Patrick, and it is time. It is spooky month, and we're starting this off with the freaking coolest, the originators, the godfathers of horror.
That's right. We actually went and we spent a couple of days watching all of the original Universal Hollywood monster movies.
Yeah.
We got, let's see, we did Dracula and Frankenstein, Wolfman, The Invisible Man,
Yeah.
Bride of Frankenstein, The Mummy, and The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, we actually watched that just this morning.
We kind of skipped Phantom of the Opera just because...
There's no way it's going to be a legitimate horror story and still based on the source material. That and plus, he was never really a monster. He was just a dude with a messed up face.
Yeah, and not just that, but the 2004 remake of Phantom of the Opera with the guy who played...
Oh, Gerard Butler.
Well, Gerard Butler was in it, and the guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi was in it. And
Ewan McGregor. He was also in Trainspotting.
Yeah, and I loved that version of Phantom of the Opera. The music, the visuals. I'm sorry, I love the organ music when it comes to all the Phantom. Just dun dun dun. It's phenomenal. I love it. One of my favorite musical soundtracks to this day.
We were actually talking about that not too long ago. It's very strange how that works out because I do like musicals and I really like Russian ballet, but I've never been able to get terribly into opera. I don't know why.
It takes all kinds. It's fun.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Opera was never really my deal, so that was something we politely looked past when it came to the Universal monster movies.
That's a nice hour and 5 minutes that I'm more than happy to not devote to that. And would rather do for the podcast anyway.
Yeah. Instead, we wanted to focus on, the big ones. The ones everybody thinks of when you think Universal monster movies. I'm talking Wolfman, Dracula, The Invisible Man, yes. That's what everyone thinks of when they think of the Universal monsters. The Mummy! Gotta have the Mummy.
Oh God. I'm sorry. One of my first horror movies growing up was The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, and I love it. I still, to this day, love the movie.
Oh, we gotta talk about that later, because...
Yeah. That's gonna be actually later on in the programming.
Yeah, because...
We've got an entire month based around Halloween and horror movies. And horror games.
Yeah, we got 5 whole episodes based entirely on spooky stuff. So that's why I'm super pumped, and because I really like horror stuff.
So let's get this started. The very first monster movie, the one that started them all, Bela Lugosi in Dracula, made in 1931.
Oh my God, we actually watched that first because it was the first one. It was the originator. It's what everyone thinks of when you think of Dracula.
And, him or Christopher Lee, because Christopher Lee had, I think they said either 9 different Draculas under his belt, at least 9 movies when he played Dracula.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Bela Lugosi probably plays the most recognized Dracula.
I mean,
I will give you that. Christopher Lee is actually a way better Dracula.
He is, but who doesn't think of the Bela Lugosi line, "It's me, Count Dracula. I bid you welcome." That is the most iconic line in Dracula history, even though there have been others that are more seen as Dracula. That is the most known line when it comes to Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
Either that or the old cartoony, "I will drink your blood, blah." But that's more of a cartoony stereotype, and I kind of find it hilarious.
To be fair, there was also Gary Oldman, who played a really good Dracula. Really, that's kind of the beautiful thing about Dracula. I can't think of a whole lot of people who have played Dracula poorly.
What about, he was a comedian actor. He did Airplane. Leslie Nielsen?
Oh, yeah. It was also meant to be a parody.
True, and even as a parody, he did a great job.
Yeah. So...
I don't know too many things where he did a bad job and very comedic. Like his Naked Gun movies were fantastic.
Yeah.
I love them.
I was always a big fan of Airplane.
Yeah.
But yeah, Leslie Nielsen was great. And he actually did play in a horror movie at one point. He was in Creepshow. And I never thought I'd see Leslie Nielsen as scary, but he kind of was.
What role did he play in that movie?
Some rich guy who, like, kills off some couple and they come back to haunt his ass.
Oh, I do remember that. I can hold my breath a long time.
Yeah, that's the one.
Buries people up in their neck and then lets the tide come in.
Yeah.
I do remember that, yeah.
And, that was Leslie Nielsen, and he was actually kind of scary. It was very strange.
He does play a very good, insane old guy who's very jealous. I could easily see him doing that. Very believable.
It's a very weird contrast from just like, of course I'm serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Right. So, Dracula, 1931, the latest. So, apparently the original monster movie started with Dracula in 31 and ended with The Creature in the Black Lagoon in 54.
Yeah.
So, we have 23 years of monster movies.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see a huge difference in the filming, production, all that good stuff that really changed over the years.
Yeah.
So, like the original Dracula, and it could be because Dracula is the only one that takes place, like 99% of the movie it's the pitch of night. Well, everything you see is very dark. He wears very black clothes.
Well,
his hair is very black. The only things that really stand out in that movie is that white shirt that shows up underneath his suit.
Yeah, I think he's got a little metal right under his collar.
He's got his face, and even then, when he's trying to hypnotize people, they darken his cheekbones and his face so that as his eyes pop out, and he has the greatest, what I like to call, fuck me eyes I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's got the bedroom eyes, like, all the time. Like, that's the thing, things will get more technologically advanced and way more impressive, but in the first Dracula, which was made, like, in 1931, about the most impressive thing about it is Bela Lugosi's bedroom eyes.
Oh yeah, he just, every time, just like 2 or 3 times in the movie at least, he just goes from looking at you normal, and then he just, like, really wides open his eyes and, like, stares into your soul.
Oh, yeah.
And I swear I get, what's the name of that movie with Anthony Hopkins? The Silence of the Lambs? Yeah, okay. I feel like that guy has his wiener tucked in and is looking at would you fuck me?
Would you fuck me? I would fuck me!
Oh, God, yes. That's ridiculous, and I love it.
Yeah. Bela Lugosi, please, you're very dead, but,
Yes.
Please be Buffalo Bill.
Considering he was playing a movie in 1931, and in 9 years, that movie will be 100 years old.
Yeah.
He only died, like, what, 15 years ago?
Yeah, something like 93, I want to say.
Oh, so almost 20, but still.
Yeah, it's still, like,
he
weird.
was very old. He had to be in at least his 90s.
Yeah, he was quite old. I think he was, like, his, like, late 20s, early 30s during Dracula, so...
Which, again, amazing. It's quite impressive. And you told me that while they were doing it, he was the voice of Count Chocula from the old serial.
They actually did hire as many of the Universal monster dudes as they could. They actually hired
Boris Karloff
as Frankenstein. Frankenberry, rather.
So, and did you say you couldn't remember who did the Boo Berry?
Yeah, no, but he was like... I can't really think of a really good one, but he's always been that guy that talks like this, and I can't...
Igor?
Not Igor, because he wasn't like a hunchback or anything, he was just a creepy dude. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
So Dracula, very interesting movie. It's like an hour and 4 minutes. Very much worth the watch if you ever get a chance to.
Oh, it is an impressive part of cinematic history.
Yeah, if nothing else, if you can't find it on YouTube or something for like less than $1 to watch, I would be surprised. Then again, some of these
Please,
companies...
please don't pay what I had to pay to get all these movies.
Hey, I thought it was pretty good. You averaged about $5 a movie.
I mean, fair.
And,
I guess you're right.
And we'll have it forever. Well, as long as the internet's around.
True.
And it was very good. I enjoyed Dracula. I didn't enjoy Dracula as a horror movie, but then again, considering what horror movies are nowadays, after you watch Saw, all the Universal monster movies are just so easy and simple by comparison.
They're very bloodless. They're very chaste. Definitely, you have to work to get the suspense. Like, you have to meet the movie halfway rather than just being shocked by it, because again, it's almost 100 years old.
Yeah, Dracula's supposed to be able to turn into both a wolf and a bat in this one, which I'm thinking after Wolfman is when Dracula can only turn into a bat. I guess after that, I know Dracula loses the ability to turn into a werewolf sometime later in the century. I don't know when exactly. I don't think it's expressed in the movies. I think he just stops turning into a wolf. I think once they came out with werewolves, they kind of did away with that because they're thinking, well, what good is a werewolf if we have a vampire that can also turn into a wolf? It's kind of like double layering kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. So his bat is literally just a giant bat on a string. They're just pulling up and down to make the movie clap.
Yeah, the Halloween decoration bats. I kind of love them, frankly.
Yeah, there's a lot of... You can definitely tell how much cinematography has changed over the years, screenwriting and everything, because literally there's a part in the movie, basically in the first 3 or 4 movies, that there is no point to them being in the movie. Oh, everyone, gather round! The White Lady has murdered children! And that was like a 2 or 3 minute segment of somebody's murdering like 3 or 4 children and sucking them dry. And then we never talk about it again. We never hear about it. It's never resolved.
Yeah, no,
Before
it's just
that, never talked about. After that, we focus on Dracula. He dies. We kill the wives of Dracula.
Yeah.
Never find out what all that was about.
Oh, yeah, and let's not forget about how incredibly anticlimactic the death of Dracula was.
You just see someone with a piece of wood and a stone.
Yeah.
Clank. Ooh, that was
Dr. Van Helsing. It was in like 3 or 4, maybe just 3 of the movies.
And I swear it was like 90 years old in the Dracula.
Yeah, he was ancient even back then.
I'm almost positive that was makeup because...
Oh no, Boris Karloff was wearing makeup in The Mummy, but we'll get to that.
Right. So Dracula, even as a monster movie, and again, these are from the 30s, but that was a monster movie that was so campy, and I understand there probably wasn't a whole lot of horror movies before this.
Yeah.
So they were basically treading new water.
Yeah.
But still, it's so goofy and out there. I don't even really consider it a monster or horror movie. I mainly throw that into more of a campy movie than a true horror. Now, he would later come on to be something amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But for the first real iteration that I'm aware of, because I think before Bela Lugosi, the closest thing we had to a vampire movie was the Nosferatu movie, which technically did come first, but it wasn't Dracula.
Yeah.
And I think it came in the silent movie era.
Well, they also took away part of what makes Dracula something special.
The charismatic
aura. And boy, with Bela Lugosi, you sure get that. Like, I like looked at the guy and I'm like, well, I mean, he's not really attractive by modern day standards. But the more he talks and the more he interacts with other characters, like you can see he's a smooth character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of makes it a little scary because he can easily convince people to
do what he wants.
Yeah, pretty much.
So after that, we got to Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. That was one of the few things I actually read the book on. There's a lot of differences. They took a lot of liberties with the book. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because they were trying to make a scary monster movie.
A few of the things that I really noticed, and I can't remember, The Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein, there was only, I want to say, like a 2-year difference between when they were made.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if they weren't already writing the script for it. Because in the book, Frankenstein's monster kills Dr. Frankenstein and his wife.
I believe so, yes.
But they both live in the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's because they had already made plans to do The Bride of Frankenstein, and you kill off the two of the three main characters. It's kind of hard to make the next movie.
Yeah. And that's kind of cool. We'll probably get into it. I actually like Bride of Frankenstein a lot more than the original Frankenstein.
Really?
Yeah, but we'll get to that.
Well,
we'll get to that.
I figured we might as well do both of them at the same time, since
okay.
they're the same thing. Not Bela Lugosi. Boris Karloff. Did Frankenstein in both movies.
He did.
In fact, Boris Karloff and the guy that played... And here's the other thing I found interesting. It's not Victor Frankenstein, which is what I always thought it was. It's Henry Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's always been Henry Frankenstein.
For some reason, I always thought it was Victor Frankenstein for some reason.
Yeah, it's kind of like that weird thing with Long John Silver. He created the stereotype that all pirates have a peg leg, even though Long John Silver never had a peg leg.
Yeah. He just doesn't have a leg at all.
Yeah, he hobbles around on a crutch. He's not...
Yeah. So, and the actor that played him, the Baroness, all the village people, only the monster and Frankenstein.
The YMCA.
Yeah, only the monster and Frankenstein himself had the same actors.
Yeah.
Everyone else was completely changed.
Yeah, they didn't even keep the same guy who played Van Helsing, which I thought was really sad because I really liked him.
Yeah, he was definitely interesting. I liked him a lot in the Dracula movie.
He was good in Dracula. He was good in all the movies he was in.
Yeah. I did enjoy the Frankenstein movies. Definitely liked him better than Dracula.
It actually did have a little bit of suspense. Again, you gotta work for it.
Yeah,
you gotta see it halfway here because it is an old movie and a lot of things have changed. But it does get kind of scary.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and it's hard to believe because how many times do you think, oh, this movie's how old? How could there be anything in it that I could enjoy? Because you go back 10 years ago, and you'll find movies, and you're like, oh man, this didn't work out too well, did it?
Rewatch The Ghoulies, which was made in the mid '80s or so, I'd say. Maybe the late 80s?
I don't know the Ghoulies.
Oh, fair enough. It was meant to be like a Gremlins knockoff, but for adults, and it was super immature and stupid, but it scared me when I was a kid.
Yeah, so it was the Gremlins then.
No, because the Gremlins actually took itself seriously. Well, up until Gremlins 2. We'll save that for another day.
Yeah. That is going to be on our schedule sometime this month. You'll just have to wait and see.
You'll have to wait and see.
So Frankenstein, all in all, a good movie.
Definitely.
Like I said, the only other difference that I'm aware of, because you haven't talked much about it, is that by the time Frankenstein gets to the windmill, he actually does talk a little bit.
Yeah, he's actually... pretty early on, he's able to speak in full sentences, but it's very simplistic, and he doesn't even speak until Bride of Frankenstein, in which case it's mostly broken.
Yeah, it's one or two
fire,
words.
No good.
Yeah, and even then, he never does fully speak. The most eloquent he ever did is right there at the end. Doctor, we belonged to death, and that's the most complicated thing he ends up saying.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because by the end of the book, he's actually kind of lofty and really, really eloquent as far as
So he's more
go.
like the Frankenstein that's in the Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman.
Ah, yeah.
So So he was more like that, almost that Victorian English, because apparently, according to the Van Helsing movie, which I did enjoy, I thought it was a pretty nice little action movie. After the fire in the windmill, he basically stayed underground and just read books, and educated himself.
Yeah, and I mean, it is one of those things. I feel like he did end up making friends with a blind guy in the book. Keep in mind, I haven't read this since I was like 12, so there's a lot that I might be messing up, but I think that was a thing. Like, he ended up making friends with a blind hermit somewhere.
Well, and the only reason I would even kind of know that is because both the little girl from the first movie and the blind guy from the second movie were in Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks movie.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and I love the movie. You know, I am a huge fan of Gene Wilder, and him playing, like, not Henry Frankenstein, but his descendant, takes over his world.
Frankenstein.
Yes, I'm not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein! And, it was a beautiful thing. The guy who plays Ray Romano's father in the movie...
Is it like Frank Boyle or something?
I couldn't tell you. My names are my Achilles heel, but he plays Frankenstein's monster and does a wonderful job. And those two people were in it, and like I said, great movie.
Oh, you know what I just now remembered about Frankenstein? That weird intro at the very beginning, like, the director would feel it would be unfair not to point out that this film may shock you and, well, we warned you. It was, like, so weird and condescending.
Right? This movie's going to be shocking, isn't it? Oh, really? Really, guys? Puns, even in the 1930s? Couldn't people be hanged for that? I miss those days.
Yeah, just, like, put up to a pyre for being a pun witch.
No! I don't wanna! Oh, God! You're gonna really put me to the torch, ain't you? Aha! Alright, burn him faster.
Yeah.
That's it, duct tape his mouth shut, stop it!
But no, like, it'd be one thing if, like, all of the movies started off with, like, someone being like, this is the tale of Frankenstein. This is the tale of the mummy, you know?
But it was
it
weird.
Only happens in this one, and...
Yeah, but it's not even like there was this great gap between them. Both Frankenstein, that had the intro, and Dracula, that didn't, and no other movie did, came out in 1931.
Yeah.
There was maybe a few months difference between when they came out.
Yeah.
So why one and not the other? They're the same production company. They were both Universal. There was no difference.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, like, because they were both directed by the same guy. Maybe he, like, made Dracula. He wasn't totally content with it, and he's like, I could make things scarier. And then he started making Frankenstein and made it like just as scary as he wanted it to be.
Maybe he was trying to be his own hype man in the start of the Frankenstein movie. Anyway, Frankenstein, I did enjoy it. Great monster movie.
Definitely.
The one that I was the most excited about this weekend was The Mummy with Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of things about it.
Yeah.
And again, one of my favorite movies growing up was The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. So I had a lot of high hopes for this. And while, again, something that came out in, I think, 32?
Something like, it was like right after Dracula and Frankenstein.
Yeah, so it was like 32, 33. We don't have exact numbers here in front of us, but we do have it pretty close.
Yeah. It was like maybe a year or two later.
But The Mummy was very interesting, and can I say, when I first saw it and Boris Karloff standing next to his people, I thought he was like wearing stilts. I thought he was a giant. He's like towering over these people.
No, he is 5'11", which isn't short necessarily, but it's not like freakishly tall either.
Yeah, so at that point, my next reaction was, instead of, oh my god, he's so tall, it's, oh my god, how did they raid the midget village from The Wizard of Oz to get his co-stars?
We need the entire Lollipop Guild in on this.
Oh man, he was so... He just... Yeah. The difference in height is really... It really sets it up. Unless they purposefully put like platform shoes or something on him, like they do in Frankenstein. He does have those really thick shoes, simply to give him a much more imposing.
Well, yeah, but in Frankenstein, he was meant to be big in general. He's, like, really barrel-chested and really tall, and that makes sense, but in this one, he's, like, really tall and skinny. So...
that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of hard to have a lot of body fat when you've been, baking under the suns for 3,700 years.
Speaking of which, the makeup really makes it look like he's been hanging out in the desert for centuries, so...
I will admit, for as many close-ups as you got with the Mummy, because, I'm sorry, Bela Lugosi, you're good, but so is Boris Karloff. He also has the fuck me eyes.
Yeah, but whereas, like, Bela Lugosi's fuck me eyes are, like, inviting, just like, you can come if you'd like. And meanwhile, Boris Karloff is demanding, like, come now.
More like, I've got you tied up in the basement. You can't run.
Like, Boris Karloff's actually a really intimidating guy.
And again, I really enjoyed the movie. It was nothing like the original. That was the original. It was nothing like the Brendan Fraser one.
No.
Still loved it.
It was actually meant to be suspenseful and horrific, whereas I feel like the Brendan Fraser movie was never really meant to be scary.
Not really. It was meant to be more of an action movie.
And it did so well.
And it did. The only real part of that movie that kind of scared me was when the mummy first comes to life. I'm sorry, looking through that thing's eye holes to the back of its skull just kind of... freaks me out a little bit.
I will admit the whole, like, suspense where there's that little guy who's got, like, a billion freaking religious symbols.
Yeah. I like
that was not only kind of got a giggle out of me, but it's also kind of intimidating, yeah? So...
I did enjoy that movie.
But I feel like you kind of have to, because Boris Karloff was... actually genuinely intimidating and scary in this one.
Oh yeah, and that was the thing. He never raised his voice. He in that whole movie he had a very commanding presence.
Yes.
And some of it really was how the other actors acted around him.
Yeah.
Because nobody in that whole movie basically ran up to him and like got all posturing and like, we've got this. No, everyone goes up there and you can just feel the, oh crap, we're a small child standing in front of Dad. He's got the belt out.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. You can feel that they can't compare to this guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's big, he's scary, he's intimidating. He never raises his voice.
And honestly, considering they can't show him having magic and stuff like they did in the Brendan Fraser movie, they can't show how intimidating and powerful he can be.
Yeah.
You can just feel the presence he gives off. Either how much him and that female actress there is that magnetism between them. I swear, you can see that in the air between them.
Oh,
and then just the pure, not so much animosity, but the willingness to just brush everyone else off. Like, you're beneath me, you're bugs in the sand before me.
Yeah.
I don't care. And until the very end of the movie, when the goddess Isis...
Yes.
Yeah,
Isis.
when the statue of the goddess Isis herself basically has to come to life to smite Imhotep, that is, and even then, even when he was being killed, he was more like, oh, well, that kind of sucks.
This is the way it must be, yes.
Yeah, just, he never let emotion get the better of him. He was always very calm, commanding, and I loved it.
Like, I feel like I can make favorites. Honestly, I enjoyed watching Dracula the most. We will get into some of the, what I think were the more technically impressive ones. I feel like The Mummy had probably the best acting, though.
Yeah, from everybody involved, yes. If we're going to go with pure acting, I would have to go with our next movie, The Invisible Man. The guy who was doing the voice acting for the Invisible Guy.
Yeah.
Had way too much fun with it.
Apparently we're getting into the technically impressive stuff really quick, too. Yeah, it looks cheesy and silly by today's standards, but keeping in mind this happened before World War II.
Yeah, I think this movie came out in 1935.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
34. It
'Cause
was.
I think only 2 movies did not happen in the 30s.
Yeah.
Or at least, I don't know about Phantom of the Opera, but the 2 we watched, The Wolfman, I think, came out in 41.
Which
and
is
then,
a strange time to be making movies, but.
yeah, so The Wolfman came out in 41, and The Creature of the Black Lagoon came out in 50.
50? I thought it was
53?
52. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 52 because it was
Okay.
11 years after. So those were the only ones that weren't made in the 30s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And again, we opted out of Phantom of the Opera, so. But at the same time, yeah, considering, like I said, it was made before World War II. It was before so much happened in the world. And it actually is very technically impressive for its time.
Yeah, I mean, if they were using wires to make the clothes move or the gloves, I mean, I couldn't see anything, unlike the freaking rubber bats in Dracula.
Yeah, you could definitely tell, like, a lot more work was put into the special effects than for previous movies.
I mean, I would swear that had to be green screen, just how they took everything. But I don't even know, I don't think they did green screen back then.
And so far, he was the first Universal monster so far that did not have fuck me eyes.
Well, for good reason. If he did have them, we couldn't tell.
Yeah, he was probably eye fucking the camera quite a bit, but hell, I didn't know.
And I would love to know how they did that. Did they have to go there in the film itself and like scratch his person out and put in some background? Or what?
I honestly don't know. They might have actually still done the whole green screen thing back then, but I don't know if that was technology they had access to. All I know is that it looked like
there was nothing there.
Yeah.
It was very impressive because I mean you do green screen nowadays and you can kind of see if you're eagle-eyed enough and you know what to look for, you can really see a bit of an outline sometimes between where the green screen is and where the person is, or vice versa if you've got a guy in a green screen outfit.
Yeah.
And that's with today's high computing power. Back then, I couldn't imagine what a green screen would look like, how bad or good. I mean, remember the old Godzilla movies? You could tell that was a man in a very big rubber suit.
Oh yeah, totally. But I don't know. I still say that it was. I don't know how they did it, but it actually did genuinely look like there was an invisible dude.
Very impressive.
Yeah. Not only that, but you are correct in the fact, like, I think that might have been, like, I think the Invisible Man might have been, like, a predecessor for the cinematic Joker. You know what I mean? He is just having a blast.
He was using drugs that was deteriorating his brain. He was going insane, always laughing and joking and carry on. He went from being this very dedicated scientist to being a megalomaniac who's like, I could imagine what an army of men who are invisible could do. Literally, you could just walk up onto the battlefield and you could assassinate important people and walk into banks and walk off with money and stuff. And I'm like, you know, he's not wrong. Back in the 1930s, that would be a very plausible thing to do. Nowadays, it would be impossible.
He actually did walk into a bank and like pull out a bunch of money and just scattered it among the people.
Yeah. So I mean, nowadays it wouldn't be that big of a deal with thermal imaging and cameras. Being invisible wouldn't be that big of a deal.
No.
But you know, back then, that would be a huge thing.
Yeah, totally, man.
And if I'm not mistaken, he is the first and only original monster movie that we watched, that we're not including Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
He's the only original actual human that doesn't get some sort of supernatural powers.
Yeah, that's true. He's just a science experiment.
So, because Dracula's he's a vampire. You got Frankenstein, who is an amalgamation of multiple bodies brought back by, I don't know, a mixture of science and BS lightning powers.
Pretty much.
The Invisible Man, which is literally just a concoction that you drink it and you can become invisible.
Yeah.
Let's see. You got the Mummy, which is a 3,700-year-old person who was brought back to life with ancient Egyptian magic.
Correct.
And given more powers. I guess he must have had some to begin with. He was a high priest. But they never really go into that, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
enough.
if that's something that's given to him by the fact that he's being reborn, or if he just always had them.
Maybe we should watch some of the sequels to find out.
Are there actual sequels to The Mummy?
Oh my god.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, there most certainly are.
You have our next movie, which is The Wolfman, which is a guy who got bit by a werewolf and now transformed.
Yeah, he's a creeper.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later.
And then you have the creature from the Black Lagoon. While not a supernatural creature, they did do it more as a evolution between man and fish that kind of hit a dead end, but also didn't die out.
Yeah, he's kind of a living fossil that, well, the creature himself, we don't know how old or young he is. We do know his species has went on for millennia completely unevolved, like crocodiles and stuff.
Yeah. In fact, the only difference between crocodiles, their ancestral form, and today is their size.
Yeah, exactly.
And they actually come to find out that the reason a lot of those creatures were actually bigger back then, because, a lot of stuff hasn't changed a whole lot. So a lot of scientists were wondering, why are some creatures, 5 and 6 times the size they are now?
Yeah.
Come to find out, so the oxygen content of the world is, I want to say, like 4 or 5% of the air we breathe. So oxygen is actually, even though oxygen is super important, it's only a very small percentage of what we actually breathe in.
Yeah.
However, back in the day when we had all these massive creatures, the oxygen was actually closer to, I want to say, 15%. So there was a lot more oxygen, so that way muscles could actually grow bigger, stronger, and denser than what they could now, a lot easier. Nowadays, creatures that size, I'm assuming with what they're saying, and this is just a hypothesis, but I feel like they would die simply because they couldn't breathe enough to sustain a muscle mass like that.
Well, not only that, but the field of gravity was a lot lower back then. And now if you had anything that big and unruly, it wouldn't be able to hold itself up.
It could be. I don't know.
There's a lot of reasons. But yes, you are correct. As far as I know, we are not scientists.
Yeah.
I'm letting
There's
you know.
your science fact of the day.
Yeah, we are just nerds who like to study, and we like dinosaurs and shit, so...
This is why we can hold so many interesting conversations, because we know just enough information about a lot of things to be like, man, I wonder, and, ask questions that aren't entry level, but just advanced enough to make people realize, wow, these are educated morons.
Yeah, we could totally, hold a conversation at a party if it wasn't for my crippling anxiety.
Yeah, Patrick doesn't like being out among a whole lot of people at once. Yeah. I don't blame him.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the good things about doing a podcast, is that we can speak to thousands, millions of people. Well, eventually.
Yeah, we're hoping that. Spread the news. We're looking for more viewers.
Yeah, definitely. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell, I don't know, some guy at the bar who won't shut up about Universal movies.
Hey, tell them we got the perfect thing for them.
Yeah, just make sure that someone at the bar isn't me. Because then I'll be like, yeah, I know about it.
Yeah, but you'd still be really excited, oh my god, somebody's talking about us, that's awesome.
Yeah, honestly, if somebody told me about our podcast, and didn't know, I'd be like, dude, sweet.
Oh, I'm giddy. Start jumping up and down. Oh,
yeah,
I'm a 12-year-old schoolgirl again.
Yeah, man.
Well, again, okay, that was weird.
You don't know my childhood.
Don't assume my gender. Oh, man. But, so, Wolfman, very... very interesting movie. It actually, the main character, I think this is the first movie that takes place in America. Well, it doesn't take place in America, but it's the first lead actor that actually was American.
Yeah, well, and he plays an American, too.
So yeah, this guy. So Bela Lugosi actually plays the original werewolf in this movie.
Yeah.
He's a gypsy. He's telling a fortune. He transforms and bites the lead character.
Yeah, it was actually said that in later films, there's actually a little bit of animosity between that actor and Bela Lugosi, just because Bela Lugosi wanted to play the Wolfman, but they went with this guy instead.
And I think, I'm not going to swear to it, I think they said the reason they did that was by the time they made the Wolfman, they were already wanting to do like a whole bunch of the verses and whatnot, and if you're going to have Dracula and Wolfman playing against each other, you really can't have the same main actor as both roles. It probably wouldn't have worked out very
It's
well.
already bad enough if they ever make like The Mummy meets Frankenstein, which I think was a thing. They definitely have to recast one of them. I could not tell you who they recast it, though.
If you were going to recast one of them, man, it would be hard. I feel like it'd be easier to do Frankenstein simply because he had more makeup on and stuff. It would be easier to hide the cast change.
Yeah, you couldn't see as easily whether or not that was Boris Karloff or not. So.
Whereas in The Mummy, it almost looked like the makeup they put on his face. They just made him really wrinkly and then dusted him with like sand all over his face. He had really deep grooves. It was a very gravelly looking face.
Yeah, he looks less old and more like your fingers when you're in the pool for way too long.
Oh yeah, it was great. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
So The Wolfman, it was a very interesting movie. It's definitely, the camera work is a lot better. You could just tell that the camera in the film they used was a lot better quality than in the previous movies.
Yeah. So yeah, the makeup was a little more impressive. I didn't care much for the acting though.
Honestly, there was only like 2 good actors in that entire movie. Well, no, I would say 3. There was the main character.
The main character was not that good.
Yeah, he was a bit of a creep.
Yeah,
but
I didn't
he
like
at least
him.
had more life to him. That's the problem. Most of the characters in this movie were all deadpan, no life really.
That is fair.
He at least, when he was going insane towards the end of the movie, realizing what he was turning into, he did have a lot more. He goes from being, oh, yes, very drab, very stiff upper lip, I'm calm, cool, collected, to, Doc, you gotta help me, I'm going f***ing insane.
Oh, yeah, totally.
His father actually was actually fairly good.
Yeah, fair enough.
And the actress that played alongside him.
Yeah, I think she could have acted a little better.
She could have, but at the same time, at least how to put this in not to make her sound like a whore. When she was potentially cheating on her fiancé.
I mean, in theory, they really just had a kiss that he brought on, and she...
And then at the end of the movie, she was willing to run away with him back to America. When your fiancé literally lives right down the road. It's not like people were going to wonder, hey, where did she go? Well, this guy ran up into the shop at like 1 in the morning. She was in her bathrobe. She wasn't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they took a suitcase and ran off together. What else would that point out to?
Yeah, kind of crazy.
Yeah. But
and that's the thing, despite the fact he had all the personality of a block of balsa wood.
Hey, he also had the personality of an old-timey rapist, basically.
Oh no, I was talking
Peeping
about
Tom?
her fiance.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I couldn't help but feel a little bit bad for the guy. Because,
Yeah.
he was a fairly reasonable, hardworking dude, and dating a really nice, pretty lady.
And I feel like if the main character hadn't have shown up, they would have been happily married and nothing ever would have come between them. They would have been fine.
Yeah, totally.
That being said, I feel like the dog we saw from the first scene had more of a presence than he did in the entire movie.
Well, of course, the dog was played by Bela Lugosi. The dog was not played by Bela Lugosi.
It was an actual dog.
Yeah, they actually got what was it, a German Shepherd or something?
No, nothing that big. It kind of looked like a bigger terrier. I cannot think of it, like an English...
Like a bull terrier?
Yeah, something kind of like that. It was a very beautiful dog.
Oh, yeah.
And, You know, the transformation that you see from him going to a normal leg to hairy legs, and then going from Wolfman to back to normal person.
Yeah, again, considering the
was
time
not-
frame it was made in, like this was back when my grandma was still in diapers.
Very impressive.
Super impressive, yeah. Like,
Right.
things got a lot more visually impressive, I'd say, after Frankenstein.
Well, because think of it like this. Normally, if you wanted to do a time lapse like that, you would have like 3 or 4 frames. You would have a picture of his legs that look like normal, and then you would see a very distinctive. Oh, well, then they literally just inserted new picture in this frame here
But-
that lasted for a few seconds. So slightly hairier, slightly hairier, slightly hairier. Now it's wolf legs.
Yeah.
But in this one, you never saw a very distinctive jump. It just
Yeah,
you
it's
would
a
probably
very-
have to pause it frame by frame. I think they would go in like every second and just add a little bit more hair. How they got his feet and legs to be in the exact same position every time to add that extra hair and to remove it all afterwards when he dies and goes back to being human. It's phenomenal camera work. I don't know how they did the special effects, but
Yeah.
considering the timeline, it was very good.
Considering the fact, like, back at that point, a classic IBM would be like witchcraft in comparison to the technology they have. The fact they were able to make that work as well as they did, it was cool. It was
Well-
really nice.
Well, you know, a lot of directors are like, "Oh, I want practical special effects. I don't want to do CGI and stuff." You didn't have that option back then.
Yeah,
Your
no.
CGI was some guy named Dave hiding behind the screens with a shovel full of dirt. And he would just it at you.
Yeah, that's an explosion.
Yeah. Well, I actually remember. I can't remember what director it was, but he wanted to make his own movie for film school.
Right.
But his father basically gave him a camera and like 2 or 3 of his workers some extra time off and like a day of vacation to help him film. But he wouldn't pay for like special effects, gunpowders, things like that, and he wanted to do a war movie. So what he ended up doing, instead of being able to afford blanks and stuff, he bought replica guns, which were really, really cheap. They
Yeah.
didn't fire. And then when he wanted someone to get shot, he literally just had a small plank of wood, like levered on the ground. There was a clod of dirt on one side, and when the guy was supposed to get shot, he would run, step on that, it would fling dirt up in the air, and that would be the gunshot that killed you.
Yeah.
Like, and they'd fall over.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive how they ended up doing like all kinds of workarounds like that back in the day. Because nowadays you could replace all that with CG. I'm pretty sure anyone could, if they worked really hard on it. It wouldn't be expensive. It would look okay, I guess, depending on how good you are with computers.
And, you know, I think.
But back in the day, you really had to work on that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, think about it. Computers wouldn't even be. They were invented, but for the most part, if you weren't a government CIA agency, you really didn't have them.
That and plus, they had about the same technological capabilities as a TI-82.
No, that was way more powerful.
Fair enough, yeah.
I mean, let's face it. The computers back then were still, you know, the size of football stadiums, basically.
Yeah, probably one of the most technologically advanced things they made.
Was a record player back then.
Yeah.
Look, this thing is a record player and it doesn't have a giant megaphone on it.
This is sorcery.
Right. So, like I said, honestly the best thing about that whole movie was probably
the
a mix.
costumes were really good.
The costumes were good. I was actually going to say my favorite thing of this whole movie might have been Bela Lugosi's mustache. Might have been my favorite part of the Wolfman.
Yeah, well, Bela
Or the walking
Lugosi.
stick. I did like that too.
Yeah, fair enough. That is a cool walking stick.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like Bela Lugosi was definitely the best part of it.
And he was only in the movie for like 4 minutes.
Yeah, he did not last long. Kind of sad, but at the same time, what can you do?
Yeah. So, the last movie on our list is going to be The Creature from the Black Lagoon. The latest one, so we start in 1931 with Dracula, and we end in 1952.
I
So
believe so, yes.
21 years worth of monster movies.
Yeah.
and these are just the originals. This isn't going to include all of the verses, because when it comes to all of the Universal monster movies, they made like 30 to 50 of them?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. The first ones came out and people clamored for it, and then people were like, well, I mean, people like Dracula, people like the Mummy.
What if we put them together?
What if Dracula and the Mummy meet up?
I feel like Dracula would win for the main fact of the only thing you ever see the Mummy do is stop people's heart with magic. Oh no, Dracula's heart doesn't beat.
Yeah, fair enough.
What's it gonna do? I'm gonna stop your heart from beating. You're about 3 centuries too late. That was a terrible accent, but I'll go with it.
To be fair, Bela Lugosi isn't anything to write home about. He just has that pleasing baritone in order to make up for it.
So, Creature in the Black Lagoon, honestly, situationally, it was very cool. I don't know how many underwater movies had been done by this point, but it looked really good.
Yeah, it was definitely the most technologically advanced, and that's including The Invisible Man, which was impressive, but
yeah,
it also was like 20 years older.
And I don't know who played the guy in the Creature's costume, but he had to have been an amazing swimmer, because if you think about it,
yeah,
he has to not only be underwater with no air tank or anything for that long, and we know he doesn't have an air tank because there's no air bubbles coming off from him, and unless he had a rebreather, which was still extremely new technology by this point, if they had it developed. I don't remember when those were developed, but I don't think it was by now.
It doesn't sound like a very 1950s thing. I don't know if it was, but
he has to be underwater, make sure all the bubbles are out of that suit, and then start swimming.
Yeah, and I'm sure that suit was not light or cool.
Yeah. I mean, at least you're in the water, so being cool shouldn't be too big of a problem, hopefully.
Yeah, but swimming's also exhausting.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean,
and he's doing all kinds of trick swimming. He's doing, like, backstroke to front stroke and stuff.
Yeah, but I bet he looked like Michael Phelps by the time it was all done. Just super slim, just a swimmer's body. And I bet he went into that being like a 400-pound fat dude and just had 3 weeks of like 12-hour day swimmings. Whew, I'm buff.
Yeah. But the suit actually looked, I don't know, he looked like a fish.
Yeah, I will admit the fact that when he opened his mouth and you didn't see a guy, because that was a massive open mouth. There had to be some mesh or something. The fact I couldn't see into it, the fact that they didn't try to make the eyes super expressive or anything. It just worked.
No, I mean, it's that's the thing. The creature is meant to be just that, a creature. And I feel like if you would have given it too expressive of eyes, it wouldn't look like a beast anymore.
True.
It would look like a humanoid person.
And, you know, considering around the same time the Godzilla movies were coming out, I kind of expected to either not see the costume, you see the shadows, or like at the very beginning of the movie when you just see a hand, the hand claw. I would expect either to have more of that and just very little reveals and not see until the very end.
Yeah.
Or the fact that we did basically see the entire creature within, about 15 minutes from the start of the movie? 15, 20 minutes? You see the full creature?
Yeah.
I expected that costume to look more like Godzilla's rubber suit, but considering the other options they had at the time, I thought it looked fairly decent.
Yeah. That and plus, like, oh god, the music.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The music was good per se, but
they did way too...
They overdid it.
I understand that you use music to build an atmosphere, but at the same time, they were trying to build an atmosphere when there was nothing going on. Like, they had this big crescendo, like when most people would have a giant reveal, like, there's the monster, he's about ready to grab you. Instead, it's just a claw that kind of showed itself on land. They'd be like, dun dun!
Yeah, dude.
And that's it. Oh no, what did the creature do? He dragged his claws through the dirt.
That was it. Like,
and they would do that 2 or 3 times, and I'm like,
oh yeah.
And at this point, I'm actually, instead of using the music to kind of get you in the mood, like, oh, this is a very suspenseful situation. We gotta have suspenseful music. They would just go dun dun. And I'm like, oh god, what are they screwing up now?
It's just it eventually becomes like you're bored of the suspense. Just
Simply
like
because
you
of
hear
the
the
music.
music swelling, and you're like, oh, what I miss? Oh crap! Another hand rising up from the water. Cool.
The only thing in this whole series that I hated more than the crescendo from The Creature of the Black Lagoon was that freaking Cockney woman in The Bride of Frankenstein. I hated that woman.
That's fair.
Her character, I swear to God, when they wrote her character, the only thing they told her, all right, look, if you're going to play this woman, you need to be the most loud, obnoxious, piece of shit person you can imagine.
Yeah.
Because she normal talks, she does it at maximum volume and just the whole time. I'm like, Frankenstein, if you do anything for me, please kill this woman.
But she lives.
But why?
I don't
you
know.
You know what? In my headcanon, when Frankenstein pulls the lever and fries them all, for some reason, God does us all a favor, picks up that woman, throws her in there while the whole thing's coming down.
I like to think her script was just like bracket incoherent Cockney bullshit.
I just want to think when the director's like, okay,
like
she's
that's
up.
her whole dialogue.
I just want to imagine that she comes up to the director, okay, what do you want me to do now? Just be the most annoying piece of shit you could imagine right now. All right, I'll just scream and do nothing.
We're gonna make you a star. Now just be annoying and high-pitched and very, very Cockney.
Yes, that's... And the whole thing takes place in Germany. Where did they get the Cockney person at?
Yeah, we did not even point out how ridiculously German the Frankenstein movies are.
Everyone is Herr Doktor.
Yeah. Everybody has, like, the Bavarian hats with the lederhosen. Anytime you're going through the village, there are at least 4 guys with mustaches holding beer mugs.
Yep, they do have a lot of steins. They do have, like you said, the Lederhosen.
Yeah.
And just, they have the music. Everything about this is German. And then there's the one Cockney lady.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it weird?
I don't know. I wonder if they did that. I would think it would be because how many people know about the German culture at this point. But then I had to stop and think. I swear, like, a third of America was German immigrants back then. If you weren't German, you knew somebody who was.
Oh, totally. So you would have been like, hey, is this normal? 9.
Wow, this is 9 times normal? 9! Smack.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was ridiculous. I loved it. It was better than Dracula. And the only thing
very much better than
the
Dracula.
only thing that would have made that movie better is if we had killed that annoying jerk.
Yeah. I also want to point out, like, we ended up getting a little bit sidetracked there, but Creature from the Black Lagoon also was like pretty much the entire cast was scientists and 1 sea captain.
Hey, there was also the 2 diggers and the 2 boat people.
Oh yeah, there is that.
You know, everyone that died.
Yeah. Things only got serious once the white guy died, but
this is true. Yeah.
But
oh no! Look, 2 brown people died. Oh no! Look, 2 more brown people died. Hey, look, the important white guy died. Oh my God! No!
Well, we gotta go now.
Right.
But no, considering the fact most of the characters were scientists. They actually did add some scientific facts in there. Have they held up particularly well? Kind of. But
it held up better than Frankenstein's facts. Quick, use the cosmic diffusulator thingy!
Yeah, like, here's the one weird German doctor with, like, the jars full of, like, tiny people.
Oh, man. Well, just some of the things. Okay, I have headphones on. Yes, there is electricity in the air. How the fuck can you hear electricity in the air?
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, I'm sure you could do it now, but I don't think you could do that with a glorified stethoscope from the 1920s.
Yeah, exactly.
And remember, this took place in like 1890.
Yeah.
The original story.
Yeah, the original. I feel like there's a suspension of disbelief there, and, like, a lot of them kind of occur maybe not in modern day, but closer to modern day than the source material in most cases.
I could see that. I mean,
Yeah.
for Dracula, it's kind of a timeless thing. I mean, it's London. It's dark and foggy. That could be today.
Yeah, that could be at any point.
Yeah, and Frankenstein does have a lot of technology. Wolfman, takes place, and the most technological thing you see in Wolfman is the telescope. And telescopes have been around for hundreds of years by this point.
Yeah.
In the Mummy, literally, it's ancient Egypt. It could have happened any time for the last 3,000 years.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that there's a couple of motor cars, so it's at least the 1920s.
Yeah.
And it's the British Museum. So...
Well, and try and keep in mind, Wolfman, I not only forgot the actor's name, I forgot the actual character's name. But
Talbot.
Talbot, yeah.
What is
Larry
it?
Talbot.
Larry. I was about to say Jerry. No. Wait.
But he actually did have a very 1930s, 1940s mode of dress. He had the trench coat, but with the dress shirt and tie underneath, and he had the fedora.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of like an Al Capone gangster. That's how we kind of
but at the same time,
interesting movie.
Well, I mean, that's also just how people dressed in the 1930s.
I mean, if you were anyone important, yeah. Otherwise, it was, coveralls and bare feet.
Yeah, oh, well, I mean, around here, sure, but... ooh, they should have made a Bigfoot movie. Yeah. I'm sure that's a thing now, but...
Oh, yeah, it wasn't surprising. Bigfoot and the Harrys.
Harry and the Hendersons, yes.
Yeah. But I think that's what Wolfman was kind of doing, was kind of a Bigfoot kind of thing.
Not really, because, I mean, a werewolf is different from Bigfoot.
It is, but a creature, it's kind of in the woods, nobody ever sees it other than the people that end up dying from it, and I could kind of draw a correlation between them, but...
I mean, kind of, but at the same time, I kind of feel like, I don't know, they transformed due to, like, some kind of magical curse. Meanwhile, Bigfoot is just some ape that hangs out somewhere around mid-America.
I thought it was more towards the west coast and, like, the great forests over there, like Yosemite.
I mean, that too, but at the same time, how many people have you met that have seen Bigfoot?
None. I'm also not... I was going to say I don't normally hang around with crazy people, but I hang around with you, and I am crazy. What are we talking about?
Fair enough, but I mean, some people have.
So...
I don't know, maybe it's just because I spent a lot of time in my 20s as a barfly, but
yeah.
I've met some people who have seen aliens, they've seen Bigfoot, they've seen, I don't know, shadow people.
Yeah. So, before we end this, I have one last thing to bring up that always bugged me as soon as I found this out.
Oh, what you got?
Igor is not Igor in Frankenstein.
No, it's a guy named Fritz.
And I always thought that the hunchback that helps Dr. Frankenstein was named Igor.
Well, I can explain that. It's actually in Son of Dracula, I believe, from that point on.
Son of Dracula or Son of Frankenstein?
Son of Frankenstein, yes. Son of Dracula's actually a different movie. But, they actually do, like, have Igor. He's, I believe, according to what I researched, he was played by Bela Lugosi again. He was in several movies. Meanwhile, Fritz was just in the one. But it is weird how that works out, because you see a hunchback who's helping out Dr. Frankenstein, you're like, oh, that's Igor.
And yet, it's actually always Fritz that we're thinking of, but in later iterations, he just gets changed to Igor.
Well, I mean, Fritz died in the first one, so...
That doesn't mean anything. It's Frankenstein. Bring him back to life.
That's fair. I mean, there are sequels to Dracula, and he dies.
Hey, it could be like Castlevania. Sure, he dies, but every so often he just, you know what? Oh, man, that was a good death nap. Oh, I'm back.
Oh, it's great to be back in England. What is New Jersey?
What is New Jersey? It's a place you don't want to go to, Drac. You're going to have to get a spray tan, some fake muscle implants.
Oh, God.
Get ripped.
I kind of want to see, like, Bela Lugosi's Dracula in, like, Newark or something now.
just on Muscle Beach.
Yeah.
Look at how buff I'm getting. Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good spot to end that.
Yeah. We could get weirder, but let's stop there.
We got 4 more weeks. We got to pace ourselves.
Oh yeah, and it will get weirder. Like, we wanted to start with the originals, but things will get a little bit more bizarre in time, and it'll end with a big deal.
Well, to you,
it's a big deal to me.
Yes, but that's okay. So join us again next week when we're actually going to start watching a couple of movies that started genres.
Yeah, we're gonna be seeing some groundbreaking Halloween movies that changed the atmosphere of horror movies. Well, maybe not forever, but for quite a while there.
And it might not be the very first of their genre, but these are the ones that everybody thinks of when they started. It's going to be, there might have been one before it, but when you think the start of a certain type of movie, this is what you think of.
Yeah, it's kind of like The Cure didn't start goth rock, but when you think of 80s goth rock, you definitely think of The Cure.
Good thing I don't think of goth rock, apparently. Didn't even know that was a thing.
That was a thing.
Alright. So, once again, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Patrick.
And we hope to see you again next week. Hey everybody, Andrew from Alleyway Conversations here. Just letting you know, we do have a Patreon page, and we would love to have you join. Whether just to look for updates, release schedules, or if you'd like to support us, we would be happy with anything and everything you can do for us. I know me and Patrick would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a wonderful day.